the feedback we've gotten where people are like, hey, I've got a chronic illness and I didn't think, this voice in my head saying, it could be worse, so don't complain too much. And so I've never said anything, and it's eaten away at me for years. And I've seen these people, these screenings say, I feel like I've been seen, I've been seen, I've
Yeah.
been heard. And that's something I underestimated, whether it's, diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis, whatever, that just doesn't go away, but yet it could be worse. They're like, man, I just have days where I want to say, honestly, this sucks, and I don't feel like I have a right to
Yeah.
do that, and just with tears in their eyes. And I mean, I could go on and on, but ultimately, it's like the moment someone says, "Oh, wait, I'm not alone," it's worth it.
Welcome to Life Off Screen with Dan Rupple. Thank you for joining us. If you're enjoying this podcast, do us a favor and subscribe to the show and give us a rating. Life Off Screen is produced by Master Media International. And to find out more about Master Media or Life Off Screen podcast, visit us at mastermedia.com. And now, here's Dan.
Hello and welcome to Life Off Screen. I'm Dan Rupple, the CEO of Master Media International and our Act One Masters class. And I am really excited about who we have today. I'm sure most of you saw the film I Can Only Imagine. It went on to make unprecedented box office. That's why I think you might have seen it. Well, there's coming a sequel. It's coming out February 20th, and I really encourage you to see it. I've seen it twice, once on a screener in my home and another time at a screening at Biola University with Cindy Bond. And standing ovation. I mean, the place is going nuts. It's just a really excellent film. So I'm very excited to have Bart Millard, the singer-songwriter and the subject of the film, as well as a member of MercyMe, and my friend John Michael Finley, who's a singer extraordinaire and plays Bart in the film. So welcome, Bart and John. Good to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Great to see you, Dan. Happy to be here.
Yeah, great to see both of you. When you were doing the first one, was there any talk, or did you ever even dream of doing a sequel?
No, not at all. We thought the story was over, and just enjoyed while it lasted, and John and I became good friends, but that was kind of it. And then our producer, Cindy Bond, like you mentioned, she's the reason the first movie happened, because she had this idea that what if the song was popular enough and had a story, could it work? And 8 years later, the movie releases, and it does more than we ever dreamed it would. And the second it was done, she had gone through some things and had even if was a big part of her life, and she immediately was like, "Hey, I want to tell a story around the song Even If." And I was like, "Well, what story?" She goes, "Well, I don't know. I want you tell me." And I was like, "Oh, there's not a story." And so she was like, "Well, just maybe there's fan mail. Maybe there's something we can do. Would you ever just get with the writer just to see if there's something?" And I told her no all the way through the pandemic, and for years, and then she wouldn't let up. And so I got with Brent McCorkle, who co-wrote Imagine, did Jesus Revolution, and we rolled our eyes and said, "All right, we can at least look at her in the eyes and say we tried." And then he asked where the song came from, and I told him the story of my son and how it came to that point of writing that song. And with tears in his eyes, he was like, "That's the movie." And he goes,
Yeah.
"And as crazy as it sounds, what if we literally got the band back together and made this kind of the spiritual sequel?" And what's so funny is not many people know is that I was like that day going, "Man, that's a lot of MercyMe, dude. I don't know." And I still wasn't convinced until he wrote the story, but it didn't keep me from the second that meeting was over. I texted John. It's like, "I think we're making a movie."
Yeah.
And they were
Yeah.
like, and they always want to be the ones to tell him. I was like, "Don't you dare tell anybody. I told you." And we were
Yeah.
like schoolgirls, like, "What? Do we get to do it again?" And yeah, so we were. I think I was most excited about that, about doing it one more time, but being able to appreciate the journey, because the other one was just like, we didn't. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. It just flew by.
Yeah. My wife and I, we were able to visit the set. One day, you guys were shooting a residential scene at a
Mhm.
home in Nashville. And I've been on a lot of sound stages, a lot of shoots, and it was one of the happiest shoots I've ever seen. People were so, working together and just joy. And it was just a really wonderful day. When, you do the first one, you all say your goodbyes. And then the next one comes 8 years later, which I can't believe it's 8 years. But anyway, 8 years later, was it like a high school reunion?
Absolutely, a total high school reunion. But everyone's a little better looking, everyone's a little older, a little more mature. I told you this before, Dan. The high school has more money now. So it was
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
it
right.
was like a reunion, but we all got to kind of be at our best. We had
Yes.
all the resource. The first film, like Bart was saying, I'm late to these projects. Even when Bart was talking about the grumblings about a sequel around the pandemic, I'm kind of the last person contacted. And so, I didn't have those years or months of like, it's a maybe not, he loves me not. And so I was so excited when Bart texted me. And Bart texted me like, "Hey, can you keep a secret?" And of course, I want to say yes, but I'm like, ultimately, no, not if you're going to tell. So
Yeah.
Bart was so excited to tell me, and I was pumped. But the reunion was amazing. We really didn't see that coming, and the first film was really just flying by the seat of our pants. And we had something going for us, so it's not like we had no clue what we were doing. But this time around, what I really appreciate is it was a red light until the right story was in place, and
That's
I think
good.
it's a really good story, and we're excited to tell.
Yeah. Art, I mean, both stories, and it's your life, are wonderful stories of redemption and reconciliation, beauty from ashes, but very personal stories. Did you have any, and it doesn't pull any punches, it doesn't sugarcoat any of the difficulties you walk through. Did you have any reluctance or hesitation, either in the first or the second? It's like, I don't know if I want my life to be told like this.
The first one, I didn't know better to have hesitation. I didn't realize what I was getting into. Like I always said, like afterwards, like the success was amazing. It was, it was therapeutic. It was also very harder than I thought it would be, reliving a lot of that. So if I had known, I probably would have hesitated a little bit. I would probably still done it, but I didn't know better then. And by the time the second movie came around, I trusted these guys so much, from Brent and Andy to directing to Brent's writing to John's acting, was like this was a no-brainer for me. The second I saw the script and realized my hesitation was that I didn't think it was a story that was worth telling. Like it wasn't, And when I saw the script, I was wrong. Like Brent made my life way more interesting than it probably actually is. But
Yeah.
and so I was able to sit back and like people ask like what was your work with John? I was like, there wasn't much work the first time, but there was a little bit just getting to know each other. This time around was just, I mean, just sitting back and watching. Like even when we got like the first one, I would go in the vocal booth and try to help him get like singing a certain way. And I think this time around we did the same thing, but I just kept cutting up and ruining his takes. Like I was more of an annoyance than anything. I wasn't
Yeah.
coaching
You were just
anything.
there to get me to relax, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. And so
Yeah.
this was way more enjoyable. And there was no hesitation because I've been telling these stories through songs and between songs on stage for 32 years, and so this is just another, uh, uh, a way to tell the same stories, and so it's like the second rodeo for me, and so
Yeah.
it still gives people stories of hope, and people realize they're not alone with what they're going through, and that's kind of the reason I started doing this in the first place.
Yeah. John, when Bart's on set, are you kind of intimidated or uncomfortable that the guy you're
Totally.
portraying's right there?
That's that's such an interesting question. And no, I don't think intimidation is the right word. Not that Bart's not intimidating in his own way. He's a big dude. But on the first film, I think we got to know each other really well, and we were collaborating, and obviously like that had to happen. But I think I was a little reserved in that I had to put some distance in between. I could get to know. It would take me 100 years to get to know someone the way their spouse knows them or the way they know themselves. And
Yeah.
so I knew that it was an uphill battle, and we were never going to have enough time. So I didn't focus all my attention on absorbing as much Bart as I possibly could. It got to a
Hmm.
point where I said, now we have to draw a line. And the words were never spoken. Bart never sat down and we had a coffee. And I said, okay, Bart, this is the tough part where I say, now you need to hand it over to me. And there's going to be things you don't like and things that aren't accurate, but like eventually I have to take this and run with it. And so on the first film, there was some hesitancy there. And like I said, I may have put some space in between us at some point. But round two, it was like so much more joyful, and those conversations didn't need to happen. And I feel like I could get to know Bart better on the sequel, because I felt like we had already had such a good foundation established, not only in character but personally, as a friendship. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
and the second one is like, I mean, the first one may have been a little bit of a challenge, but once you get to a sequel, like it's more about John playing the John that played Bart from the first movie than playing me directly. That's
yeah,
what's
Mm,
more important. And
that's
so
a great
then the
point.
pressure's off. Is like it's like whatever he interpreted me as in the first movie, he's got to hit that again. And so I'm just another layer off. So I was able to sit back and be like, "Good luck, buddy. Enjoy
Yeah,
it."
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
Good
Yeah.
point.
You know, John, I want to commend you in your performance. I mean, I'm not saying anything against the first film, but you really reached a new depth in this film of your performance. It was just, many times my wife and I were, you met Peggy,
Yeah.
are in tears, watching it was so moving and authentic, and there wasn't inauthentic emotion or moment in the film. Now, when you did the first film, you weren't a dad yet, right?
No, no,
Okay,
no.
both
Yeah,
films are partly about fatherhood.
yeah.
The first one about Bart's father, the second one about Bart being a father. And now you're a father doing the second one. Did that feed into your performance?
I can't imagine it didn't. And, I'm certainly not shy about it. I mean, I think, ever since my first day at theater school, we talked about how art imitates life and how we need to bring as much of that to the table. I'm very proud of my performance in the first I Can Only Imagine, but that was
Yeah.
literally my first time being on a film set, first time being in front of a camera. And so, I'm a baseball guy, if you couldn't tell, and I think about, that was my rookie season. I was called up in August, late August, and I did a fine job, but I probably batted 220 and, had some great moments. And, but what, to your point, um, I wasn't married, I wasn't a father. And so, when this film comes out February 20th, it will have been 9.5 years since we began filming the first film. So I'm just going to round it up to 10. We're
Yeah.
basically 10 years out. Fall of 2026 will be 10 years when we started filming.
Yeah.
And I got married to my incredible wife. I had a beautiful baby boy. I lost my mom in the process.
Yeah.
A lot of, that we all went through the pandemic. And so I'm not saying this film wouldn't have happened if those things hadn't happened in my life, but for me, it may as well have been 30 or 40 years. And I think Andy and the guys, when we were beginning the early pre production processes, I think once again, we would have moved forward no matter what. But I think this was just kind of an extra flavor that,
Hmm.
man, if we can harness something here, just the same way we done with Bart's real life. Like I love Bart so much, and I'm so sorry that he had to go through some of the things that he has gone through. But if we can turn that around and we can help people and bring some hope and some joy and some peace in some people's lives, I think the same thing about my own personal life. And we're not on a campaign to talk about my personal life, but certainly the last 10 years for me have deeply, deeply impacted. And this film has been therapeutic for me to get
Yeah.
some of that out. So yeah.
What about you, Bart? I can't imagine, and no pun intended, but it is a merciless plug. Um, I can't even relate to what it's like to sit in the theater or even at home and watch your life being portrayed. Is it uncomfortable? Is it cathartic? Is it how do you feel watching it? Or can you really separate yourself from it?
yeah. At this point, I'm able to separate myself. I mean, I'm fortunate that it's done well, and I'm like, if it was a bad movie, this may be a whole different interview. But I don't know what it's going to do in the box office. But I'm like, we're proud of the product, and yeah, it's just surreal is a good word. Like, every first in the process is emotional. Like even with the first movie, the first time I read the script alone, the first time I read it with my wife, the first edit was emotional. The first time I saw the final thing, the first time I sat with the crowd and heard them laugh at the right jokes and get emotional, like it's all just so surreal and amazing and terrifying, and it's all of that summed up. And the second that they applaud at the end, you're like, oh, thank you, Lord. Like it's all in there, and it's intoxicating, I guess is a good word to put to say. And it's hard to describe, but I've had such a great experience, and I'll mourn the fact that we still have a movie coming out, but like that season of making the film was so great, and so it was hard work, but just so enjoyable to be with this family again, and so yeah, the second time around, I've learned to appreciate every second, and I'm still in the process of doing that.
Yeah. When we visited the set, well, first of all, let me go back to the film. Tim Timmons plays a major role. He co-wrote
Mhm.
Even If with you, and I didn't know his story,
Mhm.
and you you portrayed him as such a wonderful guy, and that was so true. We walk onto the set, didn't ever know it. He just started hanging with us and laughing, and we got to get a picture and all these things. What a wonderful guy! But I want to get to the performance of Milo Ventimiglia. For most people know him from This Is Us. Wow! First of all, like Tim, he was so welcoming and just hanging with us and talking. Really kind-hearted guy, but his performance is like Oscar worthy, and I don't say that
Yeah.
lightly. He is just brilliant in it. What did you guys think of his performance? Were you a little bit in awe of this guy?
I totally in awe. I mean, I was a teenager in junior high when I first discovered Milo Ventimiglia in a show called Heroes. That my
Oh
best
yeah.
friend, like my second family, I'm sitting there laying on the floor in their living room once a week watching these episodes come out. So I've always been a huge fan of Milo. And then we've been talking the last few minutes about how certain pieces had to come together and how this film, we didn't pull any punches. And I think Milo was the linchpin of just bringing everything together. I mean, Tim Timmons is the light in the darkness of this film, and Milo brings that forward so beautifully. And then personally, as a friend and a coworker and a fellow artist, he and I sat down and put our heads together in the dark in private and just said, here's our game plan, here's what we want to do. If you and I are 1 and 2 on the call sheet, we got to move forward in this way. So there was also a lot that we did kind of more practical, not
Mhm.
kind of the mystification of film acting. A lot of it was like, let's show up every day and drive this home. And
Yeah,
he's incredible on and off screen and a new good friend.
yeah. Does he
Yeah, I
still
would
live?
say.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, like talking about John, his performance earlier when John was talking about it. I wanted to say it then, but John came in on the first movie, his first thing to ever really do in film. Dennis Quaid didn't film, but like the last 2 weeks of the shoot, he came in at the last part, and so with a lot of new names, and John came in green, and I feel like this time around, Milo was kind of the cheat code that leveled up John. There's I can't imagine because I'm not an actor, but you're spending that much time together from day one all the way through, and it's like whether it's and Milo said the same thing. He goes, I didn't know John well, but he brought in these performances that pulled something out of me, and I'm sure it's vice versa. Like when Milo
Yeah.
starts acting, John went toe to toe, and it's like some of my favorite scenes are the two of them on the screen together that are so
Yes.
like even when a word's not even being spoken, like the expression on their face, it's like they're so good, and I think they just fed off each other, and that wasn't a luxury that John had the first movie because Dennis just came in for the last 2 weeks or so. But this time, from day one, these dudes were like, "All right, I'll see your role, and I'll raise you this," and it just got better and better and better.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to have any spoilers, and this won't spoil anything. But John, when we were watching the movie, you have a couple scenes with Dennis where your beard's not there, your hair's
Mhm.
shorter. Were those shot at the very end?
We to quickly answer your question, yes, that was our very last day. I know some people don't like to have the magic of movies, revealed to them, but
Right.
like Bart said on the first film, I think we had Dennis for 8 or 9 days. On this film, we had Dennis for 1 day, and it was
Wow.
basically a half day because it
Yeah.
was like a night shoot. And that was the game plan from day. I mean, I remember months before we started, I kind of couldn't sleep one night, and I remember like calling Andy and Brent the next morning, and I said, I think the only way this makes any sense is if we shoot it backwards. Like, let me grow
Wow.
my hair out, let me grow my beard out, and let me do all the really, really tough stuff, the heavy stuff up front, and then we'll just like de-age, de-age, de-age. And none of that was really done with makeup. Like, we're also proud that a lot of it was done with just facial hair, head hair, and really just bringing out the storyline. I don't want to say the acting, but like bringing out the characterization. And so we
Yeah.
filmed everything backwards. So it was just, slowly trimming the beard back, and then once we finally got there, I remember seeing Dennis. I remember the day before, I was just thinking, if we could just get through the second to last day, we could do anything for 24 hours. If we
Yeah.
just get through that Thursday. Friday's our last day, and Friday came, and Dennis showed up, thankfully, and I remember seeing him in costume, and he saw me in costume and wardrobe, and we both just kind of looked at each other like, "Here we are." I can't believe we're here. And he gave me a hug, and that was really cool reading it.
That's
It was like
great.
the perfect storm, because it was like that was literally the night we wrapped the entire film, was that
Yeah.
campfire scene. And like the perfect combination is a fresh Dennis and an exhausted John Finley. And, and it made the most emotional. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite scenes. The entire movie is the pause, and then he says, "Here we are." Wrecks
Here
me
we
every
are.
time.
It's so
And it's
good.
that's genuine emotion. Like John was like, I was a wreck just because he was beat down, tired. It's over. There's a
Yeah.
morning to it. Like it was whether however it was planned to end right there was
Yeah.
perfection.
And I'm
Yeah.
wrapping up 3.5 months of being in Nashville, away from my wife, away from my son, and I really hadn't seen Dennis in 8 years. Pretty much since the premiere of the first film. And there was one take where the camera's not even pointed at me. I mean, it's an entire setup where 2 or 3 cameras are all pointed at Dennis. I've already done my stuff, and I'm realizing that it's 2 o'clock in the morning and that I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
Dennis has another couple takes, but like, I am done. I'm clean shaven, so I already hate it. So I'm already ready to cry. And Dennis is doing this scene, and I'm just supposed to look at him, and I'm crying. Dennis probably thinks I've gone crazy, but I'm literally just bawling. There's not a single camera on me, because I'm already mourning and celebrating this moment that we're about to have, 10 minutes into the future. And
Yeah.
it was so cool to have Dennis there. And Dennis, when an actor of his caliber and his age and his experience, when they're locked in and they're committed, that's like watching, Freddie Mercury on stage, or Prince play the guitar. So, you're watching a master, a grandmaster
Yeah.
at
Yes.
a chessboard. And so it was a special way to end the night. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the most beautiful concert venue in the entire world is Red Rocks, Colorado. Back in the 80s, when I was with my comedy group, Isaac Air Freight, we played there. And I mean, I was more intimidated by the place than the crowd, when I walked out on
Wait, you were with
stage.
Isaac Air Freight?
Yeah.
No way. Sorry,
So
I'm the
you're the
nerd
one
that
that
knows
bought our
exactly what.
album.
I know Isaac Air Freight. That's amazing. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
He
go
here's
ahead.
he
here
doesn't
it
look
is.
at it, but Dan
Here's our
swears
first
he's
record.
funny. Okay,
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'm
There's
back.
the
I'm
one.
back.
Okay, we'll put that aside. That was years ago. But anyway, I mean, that was amazing. Both scene. I won't give away anything that happened, but was there part? I heard there was you did a MercyMe concert there, right?
Yeah, we weren't sure how to do it. We just wanted, 9,000 people to show up, and so we were on tour, and we were like, hey, um, we're not going to get an empty Red Rocks. It's like a 2-year waiting
Yeah.
list, and we're like, maybe we can figure out make it a tour date, and if we can find a date, and we'll sell tickets, but let them know that this is what you're getting into. And so we somehow found a random date, and in the middle of our tour, like a Tuesday, and so we made it very clear that what was going to happen is be a long night, and 9,000 people showed up, and it was literally we played for like an hour. Let's see, Sam opened. We played for like an hour, and then the fake band, those guys came out and literally sang "Even If" over and over for an hour, hour and a half. I don't know how long it was, and
yeah.
the crowd, like there's a scene where the crowd stands on the big chorus. That was the first take they did, and no one instructed the crowd to do that. They just reacted to that song. It was all natural. Like I learned, like you don't tell a crowd that size what to do. You follow them like trying to wrangle a
Mhm.
whale. and their reaction over and over was like if they heard it the first time. And then for an hour and a half, we recorded, and then we came back at another hour set. And then about half the crowd left, and the rest stayed till almost 1 or 1:30 in the morning to get
Wow.
close-up shots. And they were all in. They're like, "We're in a movie. Like, we're in."
Yeah.
And the scenes are epic in the movie. They look so great.
Oh, phenomenal,
Yeah.
phenomenal. Well, to wrap up, what are your hope? What's your hope for audiences' takeaways of this film?
I'll go
Mm,
first.
yeah.
I'm so proud, and Bart and I have talked about this. Um, I grew up a preacher's kid, and
Yeah,
I know how beautiful the church is, and I know how beautiful the people in the community are. But I also know that there's certain things we don't like to talk about. There's some taboo things, and I'm proud that we are we cover a lot of ground. I mean, from type 1 diabetes to cancer to death to loss of faith to struggles in a marriage, struggles between parents and children. I mean, I think we cover so much humanity that I'm very, very proud of how courageous that everyone in this process has been
yeah.
to tell a story that has some real meaning.
Amen.
Yeah.
How about you, Bart?
Yeah, it's similar. Like, I know it sounds kind of silly to say there's enough problems in this movie. We're handing them out like candy, but it's like the idea was when the first one was a father-son movie. This one definitely has that part of it, but there's so many layers, and the reason we tell stories is the feedback we've gotten where people are like, "Hey, I've got a chronic illness, and I didn't think." This voice in my head saying, it could be worse, so don't complain too much. And so I've never said anything, and it's eaten away at me for years. And I've seen these people, these screenings say, I feel like I've been seen, I've been seen,
Yeah,
I've been heard. And that's something I underestimated, whether it's, diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis, whatever, that just doesn't go away, but yet it could be worse. They're like, man, I just have days where I want to say, honestly, this sucks, and I don't feel like I have a right to
yeah,
do that, and just with tears in their eyes. And I mean, I could go on and on, but ultimately, it's like the moment someone says, "Oh, wait, I'm not alone," it's worth it.
yeah.
And
Amen.
selfishly, that applies to me too. Like when someone sees this movie and says, "I'm not alone," that means the world to me because I need to be reminded of as much as anybody else. And that's been the greatest joy of of seeing the effects of the results of the finished product. And
Yeah,
we're not even there yet. I'm just seeing these screenings and blown away by the response. And so just excited to get it out there, and
yeah.
hopefully it brings people some comfort or encouragement.
Yeah, I think it will. I just want to bless you guys. I pray that God will just use this movie in an incredible way for people who are walking through really hard times, that they won't give up hope. They know that nothing can separate us from the love of God, and God uses sometimes the hardest things that we walk through for his glory and to draw us closer to him. So I just pray there's anointing on this film, and it does
Mm.
far better than the first one, which did really, really well. So anyway,
Amen.
Yeah,
amen.
from your lips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so great to talk to you, and thank you so much for being our little podcast.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Dan.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us for Life Off Screen. Life Off Screen is produced by Master Media International. Our production coordinator is Nicole Spidell. Please subscribe to the Life Off Screen YouTube channel or the Life Off Screen podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment in the comment section. To find out more about Master Media or subscribe to our newsletter, visit us at mastermedia.com. Thanks again for joining us. Hope to see you next time.